Hi friends, welcome back to my channel Testing Mini Bytes. I am your friend Amnon Saktivel, and in this video we will see how we can pass lambdas as a method parameters. This is something that is really new because we tend to pass data as a parameter to the method, right? So if we want to add two numbers, we pass two integers as the parameters to the method. But how about passing the behavior itself, the lambda itself as a parameter, right? That's what we're gonna see in detail in this particular video, right? If you are completely new, that's okay. Please do watch the previous videos so that you can understand what I'm speaking here, right? So yes, let's get started. So this video we will see how we can pass lambdas at the method parameter. But before this, right, before 1.8, everything in Java belongs to an object or a class, right? You create something, you tend to think okay about creating a class, because as an entity cannot exist on its own in isolation, right, or in isolation before Java 8. So if we want to pass something, we pass the object that has the behavior, right? We don't pass the behavior itself, right? We pass the object to the method that has the behavior, right? We'll see about that in detail. From Java 8, how this trend changes, how we can just pass the behavior itself to the method as parameter. So we will see that in detail with simple example. Without wasting much time, let's get to the Eclipse workspace. So I have a test runner class where I have just a main method. Let me go and start creating my let's say I create my interface called as animal, right? So, and this animal interface, let's assume it has abstract method called run, right? And I also want to provide some implementation for this interface. So the conventional way of doing it is creating a class, let's say dog, and here I want to also create implement your animal interface, right? So yeah, so the basic default implementation that I want to provide for this is let's say running at 30 km/h, right? Good. So once you are done with it, I'll also create one more implementation, let's say cat, and I'll also implement my animal interface here, right? In the default behavior, let's assume I am giving it as running at 15 km/h, right? So, and then save it. Good. Once you are done with this, right? So let's assume I have some static void perform method, okay, that accepts an animal type, right? And whatever the animal that's coming, I want to call the run method, right? So this is how we used to pass the object, right? So suppose, let's say I want to provide an implementation, right? So this is what we call it as polymorphism, right, in Java. Good. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create animal1 equal to dog, right? Which, and then now if I call this perform method, I pass the reference itself. So since this is a dog, right? So this is an object of a dog type, right? So when I call this run method, obviously the implementation from your dog class will be printed, right? Let's see what's happening, right? So right click, run as Java application. So if you notice, it is running at 30 km/h. The thing why I have given this demo is to show that we want to pass a behavior. We want to pass this running at 30 km/h. But to do that, we cannot directly do it. So instead, we wrap the behavior in an object, right? So we have wrapped the behavior in an object, and we are passing the object itself, right? So using a reference variable. Again, you don't need this reference variable, okay? You can just cut this, okay, and then pass it directly, right? So you're passing the object itself that has a behavior. So that's what you want to understand. But from Java 8, you can still optimize this and pass the behavior itself, right? So let's assume, so let's say animal, and since you know how to write a lambda expression for this run method is very simple method that doesn't accept anything and doesn't return you anything, right? So it doesn't accept anything and doesn't return me anything. So I can provide my implementation let's say running at 100 kilometer per hour. This is my the implementation, so it doesn't throw any error. So this time, if I want to pass, okay, let me call the perform method and pass the animal itself now, right? So if you notice, I am passing a behavior alone, right? So I don't have any object here. So all whatever there is, it's just a behavior itself. So now let's try to see what's happening. So I don't do any change to this method itself. Okay. So if I open my console, so if you notice, running at 30 kilometer, running at 100 kilometer per hour. So we don't create any classes, objects. We don't pass the objects itself that has a behavior. We are passing the behavior itself. So instead of that, right, instead of using a reference variable, what I can do, I can pass like this, right? So now if I run this again, it will work absolutely fine. So now we are passing the lambda itself. This is a lambda, right? So it doesn't accept anything and doesn't return you anything. And this is a lambda. We are passing a lambda as an input parameter to a perform method. So that's what I want to cover in this video. So from Java 8, it is possible that you can pass a behavior alone to one method. That's very very important. That forms the basis for your functional programming. We will see what are some of the other methods that's there, and we'll try to cover them in deep again if you don't understand any of these, right? So let's also take another example to simply simplify this scenarios. Okay, let's say I want to find an uppercase for a string. So what do? You create a method to upper and you pass the string itself. So let's say I pass the string, right? Let me create the method now. So you have a method, okay, and now instead of this I can also do string dot to uppercase, right? So we'll create a method like this. Suppose I want to create a lowercase, right? So to lower, right? So we will do like this, right? So let's assume control one, create the method and provide the implementation, right? So string dot to lowercase, which and save it, right? So if I want to find the length, again I have to create a method. But what if I can pass a lambda itself to one method, right? So let's assume I'll create a new method, okay. uh, let's say string operation is the method that I want to create that accepts a consumer, right? Consumer interface we have already seen about it, right? That accepts a string but doesn't return you anything. So let's name it sorry guys, I'll create it separately here. Private static string operations. Let me keep it as void for now so it's more simple. Okay, and let me pass the consumer of string to this, right? Consumer, and also pass the string, right? Again, you can also keep the data itself here, and yeah, control shift and O, this will come from where java.util.function. So now I have a method that gonna accept a lambda. So this is a lambda, right? So you can provide a lambda implementation and then you can pass it around, right? So let's do that now. So string operation, okay, string operation. Okay, it's now asking me for a consumer. So consumer, let's say I'm accepting a string. So whatever the string that you give, okay, I'm gonna do s dot to lowercase. Okay, that is my first implementation. But I want to wrap this in as a source statement. I want to print it out so that I can see what's happening. Okay, and what is the string that you want to do this operation? Maybe I want to do this operation on right. So you can provide these kind of implementation. You don't have to create a lot of methods, right? So instead of this I can just tell uppercase, right? That's very very simple, right? Now if I run this program, right, so let me comment this out, okay, and run only these two things, okay. So guys, we need to tell consumer dot accept is abstract method there, and then pass the whatever the string that's getting that we are getting. Now, if we run this program, right? So you tend to get your lowercase implementation. You're passing the implementation itself, right, along with the data. That's very, very important. Again, it's not mandatory that you need to pass the data. Let's assume you don't pass the data here, okay? And then your method becomes very simple. Now you have the data here itself, okay? String, let's say temp equal to no, so let's have a combination of uppercase and lowercase so that it works for both, right? So if I run this program again now, so the first implementation that you give is to lowercase, so it working like that. Second implementation is uppercase, it is working. So suppose I want to find the, you know, length of the string, okay, and I can simply tell its length, right? As simple as that, guys. So since you are passing the lambda itself, the behavior itself, it becomes more easy now. So we will see more the more, how we can use this in our real time, right? How we can use this in test automation in detail in the upcoming videos. If you like the video, please do subscribe and share it with your friends, guys. I'll see you all in another great video. Until then, tada, bye bye from Abdul.